Lord, help us to hear your gospel. Help us to know you, to follow you, and to see you at work. Amen. Well, we're in the second Sunday of the Epiphany season, and we look at some of the very early stories of Jesus' life and public ministry, and we're round the calling of his disciples. And today, from John's Gospel, it's the calling of Philip and Nathanael, and that's John chapter 1, verses 43 to the end. In the previous passage, it's breakneck speed at the end of the first chapter of John. The next day, the next day, the next day, each section begins that way. And the previous day, Jesus has called Andrew, and Andrew's dragged his brother in, and Andrew's brother Simon has been renamed Peter by Jesus. And this has all happened where Jesus is being baptized, has been baptized near the River Jordan. And on the next day, which is verse 43 of John chapter 1, Jesus decides to go to Galilee, which is where they're all from, the region of Galilee. Galilee can sometimes mean the lake. It often means that region around the lake, and particularly to the west of the lake, and immediately to the north. And Jesus finds Philip, we're told, just finds Philip and says, "Follow me." And that seems to be a pretty quick one. Philip is from Bethsaida, the same small Galilee town as Andrew and Simon. And Philip follows him straight away. And Philip immediately goes and finds Nathanael and brings him along too. Nathanael is one of those confusing disciples. There are a number of them who have two different names. In some versions, in some Gospels, you'll find him called Bartholomew, same one. And then we have a strange conversation between Nathanael and Jesus. Nathanael saying, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Because Philip has declared Jesus to be from Nazareth, but also much more than that. He said he's the one about whom Moses in the law and the prophets wrote. And Nathanael, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Well, when he meets Jesus, Jesus is very straight with him and realizes that, and knows full well that Nathanael is a man in whom there's no guile. He says it straight. He doesn't deceive. He doesn't manipulate. He doesn't hide things. He's a straightforward man. And Jesus tells Nathanael that he saw him under the fig tree when Philip challenged him. He knew what was going on in Nathanael's mind. He knew Nathanael's questions. Could this be from Nazareth, the Messiah? Is this possible? And Jesus deals with Nathanael very straightforwardly. "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael gets there straight away. "Rabbi, you're the Son of God. You're the King of Israel. Do you believe? Because I saw you under the fig tree, you'll see greater things than these." Let's come back to those greater things in a moment. The power of what's going on here is immense. There's something magnetic, there's something hugely exciting happening, and we can lose that unless we stop to dwell on it. The day before, Jesus has simply called Andrew and Simon to follow him, and they have given up their livelihoods and their lives and their lifestyles. They're just following him. And then he calls Philip and just finds Philip and says, "Follow me." And Philip finds Nathanael, and it's sort of brief conversation. Nathanael says, "This can't be right if he's from Nazareth." Meets Jesus, talks to him for a couple of minutes, and he's following too. There's something hugely attractive and powerful in Jesus. he can say to people, follow me, and they do. Now, obviously, he knows who he's calling. He knows who he's working with. These weren't ultra stars in any way. They become the disciples. They become the apostles. And there were others later on in the gospel story who didn't want to follow Jesus because it was too costly. Let's not pretend that everyone who Jesus saw was converted to follow him fully. That's not the way it was. But there were many people for whom that call was just real and powerful. And in each case, these early disciples, they were so excited by Jesus. Andrew was so excited, he had to go and find his brother Simon and tell him. Philip was so excited, he had to go and find Nathanael and tell him. And they both realized that here was someone of great importance to their religion, to their future, to their whole lives. This is Joseph. He's the son of Joseph. He's from Nazareth, but he's the one the prophet spoke about. Something huge going on here. Are we as excited about Jesus as we ought to be? We meet Jesus day by day, I hope, in our praying and reading. We certainly meet Jesus when we come to church together, or when we watch a service or listen to it online in some modern, clever, technical way. However it is, that when we gather with others and read the Bible and have prayers, and when we can hopefully receive Holy Communion, we meet Jesus. And he sends us out. And how excited are we? Have we lost something of the oomph, the joy? Last year, when Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, was quite ill, and the weeks after that with COVID, his advisors were saying he seems to have lost his mojo. Have you lost your mojo, your absolute passionate love for Jesus and your excitement about Jesus, so you have to tell other people? That's what we've got in these first disciples, in Andrew and in Philip. They're the stars of these two. Simon Peter gets bigged up, of course, and then Nathanael gets bigged up because they have a bit more conversation with Jesus. But stop and see how they got there. They got there because someone else was just excited at meeting Jesus and had to tell someone else. I need challenging by this. Maybe you do too. Where's my excitement in knowing Jesus and in meeting him day by day and week by week? Where's my need to tell other people? Because Jesus, just meeting him has made such a difference. Meeting him tells me that it's okay. Meeting Jesus tells me that God's plan is coming about. Meeting Jesus now tells me that COVID isn't wrecking the world, and the strange year we had last year isn't the end of things. Meeting Jesus tells me that God's still in charge, that God knows what he's doing, and that God's kingdom is coming to be, and that I'm part of it. Meeting Jesus is deeply, deeply exciting, and I need to tell other people. And sometimes I lose that first love, the flame, the mojo. And we need to find that back, and we need to acknowledge sometimes that we've lost it and seek God's blessing and his touch and a refilling, rebaptizing with his Spirit, so that we have that real sense of excitement in knowing Jesus and having met him and needing to tell others. And then at the end of our gospel reading, Jesus says to Nathanael, very truly, I tell you, you'll see much more than this. You'll see much more than me knowing what you're thinking when you're under the fig tree. You'll see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Getting a bit heavy here, aren't we? It's not just someone who knows what's in your heart. It's not just someone who knows what you were doing yesterday or what you were thinking about this morning. You will see if you're a disciple of Jesus, if you follow him, you will see who he really is. You'll see that even God's angels want to be around him. You'll see that heaven opens for Jesus, as we saw at the baptism of Jesus last Sunday. You'll see that heaven looks on Jesus. If Jesus walks on this earth, the angels and heaven itself want to open up and be there and watch what's going on. You'll see something of who Jesus is. He is the focus of attention for the spiritual world. He's more than just someone who knows your heart and mine and your thoughts and mine. Jesus is the one who, the whole of the spiritual realm that we hear about and don't quite understand, heaven and the angels and all that, are just focusing on Jesus and looking at him. And heaven opens and the angels come and go because they want to be seeing Jesus and seeing what he's up to and close to him and watching this magnificent thing that God is doing in Jesus. And you can see that too if you're a believer and a disciple. You can see something of who Jesus is and you can gaze in wonder as the angels did. And you can open your mind as heaven opened to Jesus and to look at Jesus and to follow him. And Jesus can be the center of your world, the center of your life, as he was the center of their world, the center of their focus, even for the angels. And Jesus says to Nathanael, you'll see the angels focusing on me. Is this powerful stuff or what? Can we focus on Jesus? Can we make sure he's the center of our life, the center of our attention, the one for whom we live, the one who we're glad to follow? Bless you. Amen.